Imagine coming home after a long, exhausting day. The house is silent. No one is waiting for you. No one cares whether you ate today or if your work was meaningful. You sit down staring at the screen, scrolling through distractions in the quiet moments. You wonder, is this all there is? It's a feeling most men know intimately, the quiet loneliness, the lack of connection, the absence of a sense of purpose beyond what you've created for yourself. But is that enough? And if you're honest now, deep down, are you content with simply existing, or do you crave more? Now, I'm not saying every man must have a girlfriend, nor is solitude inherently bad. Sometimes solitude can be necessary for personal growth and reflection, but if you're a man living alone without a partner, without direction, or without a sense of meaning, tethering you to the world, you're playing a dangerous game. A man left entirely to his own devices, without challenge, without responsibility, can easily drift into chaos. It's a slippery slope, and many men find themselves falling into patterns of nihilism, addiction, and despair. Worst of all, they become comfortable in these habits, convincing themselves that this is the way life should be. The truth is, a life of isolation, unchallenged and untested, is a life that will eventually be filled with regret. Living alone may seem like a neutral, even preferable situation in a world that promotes individualism. After all, we are constantly told to embrace independence, focus on our careers, and chase after personal success. But what they don't tell you is that prolonged isolation erodes a man's well-being without someone to challenge you, hold you accountable, or care about your progress. You're susceptible to stagnation, and stagnation is dangerous without external motivation. You might convince yourself that skipping a workout, eating unhealthy food, or indulging in mindless entertainment doesn't matter. But these small failures, unchecked, accumulate over time. They breed aimlessness, a deep, gnawing sense that nothing matters, and then the spiral into nihilism begins. It feels like the world is indifferent to you, and so you begin to feel indifferent toward the world. One of the greatest dangers of isolation is the absence of emotional connection. Men, particularly those who live alone, are often conditioned to suppress their emotions, viewing vulnerability as weakness. We are taught to be stoic, self-reliant, and tough. But human beings are wired for connection. We thrive on relationships, whether with friends, family, or a romantic partner. When that need for connection goes unmet, it manifests in unhealthy ways. Many men isolated for too long develop resentment towards society, resentment towards relationships, and often resentment towards themselves. They may project frustrations outward, blaming the world for their loneliness, or inward, which leads to depression and self-loathing in the absence of emotional connection. A man becomes like a wound, left untreated, slowly festering. He may retreat further into isolation, refusing to acknowledge the growing emptiness within. But the truth is, isolation doesn't heal, it only amplifies the pain. Isolation can become comfortable. The fewer people you interact with, the more you convince yourself that you don't need anyone after all. After all, if no one expects anything from you, there's no pressure, no responsibilities, no obligations. But that comfort is a lie. It's not strength, it's avoidance. A life without a partner, without meaningful relationships, means you miss out on the vital force that drives men to grow, improve, and find deeper meaning. Taking on responsibility is one of the most difficult yet necessary things a man can do. Many avoid relationships because they fear the effort, compromise, and sacrifice involved. They convince themselves that staying single offers complete freedom on the surface. This seems appealing: no one to disappoint, no fights, no commitment. But beneath this illusion of freedom lies a problem. The refusal to take on responsibility leads to a shallow, unfulfilled existence. Without responsibility, there is no growth. Without growth, there is no progress. Without progress, there is only stagnation. Many men avoid relationships because they fear failure. They fear failing in love, failing at commitment, failing to live up to expectations. The fear of not measuring up can be paralyzing, but this fear is exactly why responsibility is so crucial. It pushes a man to grow. A man who avoids responsibility remains untested, unchallenged, and ultimately unfulfilled. Meaning in life isn't found in endless freedom or convenience. It's forged through struggle, perseverance, and meeting challenges. Head on. A man who takes on responsibility, whether in relationships, career, or personal growth grows in strength, wisdom, and purpose. Relationships, particularly intimate ones, force a man to become more than he currently is. They demand patience, communication, and self-improvement. They reveal weaknesses that can be ignored when a man is alone. They expose the things you need to work on, things you might never even notice if you were living in isolation. A strong relationship is not about avoiding difficulty. A good woman will test a man not to break him, but to see if he's capable of standing firm, leading and being someone she can trust and respect. She will push him to be better, to refine his character, and rise above weaknesses. She sees potential in him, even when he cannot see it himself. When a man is alone, he can deceive himself into thinking he's fine as is, but a real relationship acts as a mirror, revealing both strengths and weaknesses in ways that solitude never can. A good partner will notice when a man isn't living up to his potential and will challenge him to improve, not because she's demanding, but because she sees what he's capable of. Real relationships teach a man how to navigate struggle, how to compromise, and how to put someone else's needs ahead of his own. These qualities, patience, resilience, and emotional intelligence, are essential in all areas of life. Many men avoid relationships because they fear vulnerability, being hurt, or being controlled. But true strength is found in engaging with these fears. Taking risks, opening up, and committing a strong relationship doesn't weaken a man. It makes him stronger, forcing him to evolve, step into his potential, and become someone worthy of respect and admiration. Living in isolation may seem like independence or peace, but it often leads to weakness. Isolation deprives a man of the challenges and interactions that force growth. Without anyone to test him, depend on him, or call out his shortcomings, he risks falling into a cycle of self-deception, convincing himself that he doesn't need anyone. But deep down, he feels something missing. The danger of isolation is that it breeds resentment. A man who isolates himself might view relationships cynically, resenting couples or assuming others are naive. He justifies his loneliness by pointing out flaws in relationships, telling himself that love is a weakness. This mindset traps him, making it harder to form meaningful connections in the future. Isolation also stunts emotional resilience. A man who avoids relationships also avoids the experiences that would make him stronger, learning to navigate conflict, disappointment, compromise, and leadership. Without these challenges, he remains emotionally underdeveloped. Comfort in isolation is addictive, but comfort is not fulfillment. A man who isolates himself may avoid pain, but he also avoids purpose over time. His solitude becomes a prison, and the only way out is through deliberate action. A man must stop waiting for motivation or the right opportunity and start creating meaning for himself. He must take responsibility for his life, set goals, and work toward them every day. Only then will he build something of value, a career, a skill, a family, and contribute meaningfully to the world. A man must stop making excuses. Meaning is not found. It is built. A man who avoids self-improvement, who refuses to face discomfort, will remain stagnant the longer he stays isolated. The harder it becomes to break free from that cycle, to live a truly fulfilling life. A man must engage with relationships, take on responsibilities, and work toward becoming the kind of man who can sustain meaningful connections. Meaning isn't something that happens to you, it's something you create through action. So to the man reading this who feels isolated, stagnant, or lost, this is your wake-up call. You cannot continue down this path forever. You owe it to yourself to step out of isolation and into a life of responsibility, growth, and meaningful connection. Start small, take responsibility for your actions. Reach out to someone you care about. Even if it's just a conversation with a friend or family member, do something today that challenges you, physically, emotionally, or mentally. Life is about growth, struggle, and the willingness to face discomfort head-on. You can choose to stay in your comfort zone, or you can rise to the occasion and become the man you are meant to be. The world is waiting for you to take action. Step up, take responsibility, and build the life and relationships you deserve.